This book has been on my to-read list for years, since 2017 at least, and whenever I felt peckish for a novel, this would often be one of the first to come to mind, but another book would quickly supplant it. After reading a light novel with a similar theme, however, I was in the mood for another melancholic romance and saw yet another post on the light novel subreddit that pushed me over the edge. That was this post by Whipsack, though this post by It's Rhyme Time right as I was posting my review certainly helped. The book is a rewrite of a story the author posted on 2chan of all places, and focuses on a service that can buy and sell lifespan, health, and time. I read a fan translation by vgperson, but there's also an official English translation from Yen Press. vgperson is the only one to translate the bonus short story attached to 3 Days though, but more on that later. Also, this light novel has no illustration, so everything you see next comes from the manga, which is a near identical retelling of the story. The protagonist, Kusunoki, is a 20-year-old deadbeat who dropped out of college and lives in complete squalor, so in a fit of self-deprecation decides to sell most of his remaining life. Despite the circumstances, it's hard to like him at first. He himself admits that his predicament is entirely his own fault due to his arrogance, which is something he had even as a child. The descriptions of his childhood, namely that he never understood his peers or humour, suggests he's on the autism spectrum, but this is never brought up during the story. He and those around him attribute everything to the aforementioned arrogance. The one hope he clung to was a promise he made to his childhood friend Himeno that they would achieve something great by the time they were 20. She moved away soon after. Over these years, Kusunoki comes to realize he was in love with her. His last wish is to meet her one more time and give her the money he earned so that at least she can be happy. No one seems willing to talk about this book story beyond the life shop premise, so I'll keep my summary brief as well. The biggest thing that stuck out to me was how subversive this story felt. I already mentioned before how unlikable Kusunoki is at first, when you'd expect the hero of a story like this to be more sympathetic. The romance doesn't go entirely how you'd expect either, and despite the urgency of Kusunoki's drastically reduced lifespan, the story has a very gradual pace at times, almost like a slice of life novel, but this is done intentionally as if to highlight how wonderful smaller moments can be. Even the magic of how life is bought and sold is never explained. It's like the science of Frankenstein in that regard. You don't need to know how it works, only how powerful it is. If I had to pick a pop culture comparison for the plot, it would be Groundhog Day, another story about an insufferable person learning to better themselves due to supernatural circumstances. The tragedy aspect is a lot different than what I expected too. Naturally, this is subjective. I have seen people say they cried at the end, but I was surprised that it felt hopeful instead. I think this is because Kusunoki chose to give up his life instead of it being taken from him. That agency makes the proceedings feel more bittersweet than outright sad, but I'm definitely still sad. So yeah, all the hype around this book is very much deserved. It's a very muted, mundane experience despite the heavy supernatural elements, but that was definitely an intentional choice, just like everything else in this story. I'm glad my younger self picked this and Miyake's other works out way back when, and I'm glad I finally got the chance to read it. I hope you will too. Miyake also wrote I Say a Little Prayer, a short story that Yen Press didn't translate as mentioned earlier. Obviously I highly recommend it as well, but I particularly like the added context it adds to the main story. That said, it's set near the end of 3 Days' second act, so I don't recommend reading it until after finishing the story. There are no explicit spoilers, but it does allude to several elements both before and after that point in 3 days, so be warned. I really hope this story gets more attention, and even an adaptation down the line. I think 3 Days' small scope would make for a great anime film in particular. Thanks for reaching the end of this video. This was actually the third light novel review I wanted to post, but Gigguk posted a 3 Days video yesterday, so obviously I had to fast track this for the algorithm's sake. If this outro sounds different to the rest of the review, it's because I'm re-recording this part of the video as a result. Anyway, stay tuned for more melancholy light novel reviews in the near future, after which I probably need a break from tragedies. Suffering aside, please leave your thoughts on 3 Days and further recommendations in the comments for everyone watching. Thanks again for watching, and as always, have a great day.